Yeah, so there's a bit of a backstory and a prehistory of the film incident. As Bill said, I had reported on what we can now say was the police murder of Laquan McDonald, and that had issued in a new period of reform in Chicago, including a video release policy, as the film noted, that in incidents of police shooting and grievous use of force, the city and the police department are obligated to release video evidence within 60 days of the incident. What was fascinating against that background, and in the case of Laquan McDonald, I had first reported in early February of 2015. The incident occurred in October of 2014. It was fully 13 months from the time of the incident to when the dash cam video was released. And it took a huge sort of public campaign, people in the streets, legal strategies. This incident was like a acceleration of that within 24, 48 hours. So against the background of the city withholding at great institutional costs the Laquan McDonald video for 13 months, in this case, the police superintendent released video of the incident in less than 24 hours out of concern for a kind of building disorder in the streets with people who had witnessed it and heard about it, with the sole purpose of demonstrating that Mr. Augustus had a gun. So it was sort of doctored video, or not doctored, I mean, it was real footage, but highlighting the fact that he had a gun. And in fact, that kind of faux exercise in transparency worked to the degree that there was no more protest, no public interest, because that way he had a gun. The police shot him, end of story. With colleagues and with an extraordinary human rights group in the UK, Forensic Architecture, and if you're not familiar, I urge you to look at their website. It's a group of not just architects, but it began with an Israeli-British architect, I think mostly on the West Bank, maybe 12, 15 years ago, exploring how the tools of architecture could be used as forensic human rights tools to investigate human rights abuses. So, incredible spatial precision, 3D modeling, and then a whole range of other capacities that they developed kind of project by project. So we were brought together, my organization is the Invisible Institute, which is a kind of small south side of Chicago journalism production company, but we're really well sourced in the community. It brought us together, and we ended up doing a project. We were introduced to each other, and ended up doing a project called 6 Durations of a Split Second. And the idea was to interrogate the idea both in the law and in popular culture, which is central to incident, that officers, there's a unanimous Supreme Court decision to this effect, that officers are to be shown great deference within the life and death split second when they make a decision to use lethal force. And so our idea was to, in this tragic and in some ways utterly absurd police encounter with a civilian, to interrogate the idea of the split second by, in 6 short videos, reconstructing the same interaction in 6 different time scales. So from milliseconds, the events that go on in somebody's brain when they perceive a threat and form an intention to shoot, to years. And so milliseconds, seconds, minutes, hours, days, years. And so we did this project. It had a lot of impact. In the course of it, we found video that the city had not in fact released. I don't think it was from any kind of effort to cover up, but we discovered actually the dash cam video that's in the film that shows Officer Haley, stepping forward to shoot Augustus hadn't been released. And this was a kind of mini scandal, and it led to litigation that lawyers who worked with us pursued, really threatening the city with contempt if they didn't release more video. And the upshot of that, 2 full years after we did 6 durations of a split second, is the lawyers notified me that the city had provided all the body camera footage of all the officers, unedited, who had either participated in the incident or been in the crime scene in the aftermath. So we had, Bill would know exactly, but something on the order of 20 hours of footage. I wrote an article that sort of allowed me to be like an omniscient narrator describing these concurrent things that were happening in this chaotic crime scene. But also very central to the reporting I did was the still point amid all this kind of dithering activity of the police, of Aretha Augustus on the ground. Nobody, except to handcuff him and unholster his gun, nobody ministered to him, nobody said a comforting word, nobody tried to determine whether he was alive or dead until the ambulance arrived. And so, I wrote that piece, and at that point, Bill entered with, an extraordinary sensibility and skill set, and all this, in a sense, archival footage to work with.
Right, so that was